The stadium erupted as his name echoed across the field. He stood under the bright lights, holding the MVP trophy in his hands, an honor reserved for legends, not for someone who had spent most of his career invisible to the world. Just a year ago, he was on the practice squad, running drills with no guarantee of ever stepping onto the main field during a real game. No interviews, no highlight reels, and definitely no trophies. He had been just another name on the roster. Someone meant to help the starters prepare, not someone destined to lead a team. Coaches barely noticed him. Fans did not even know his jersey number. But everything changed with one opportunity. A single moment where preparation met luck, and he seized it like his career depended on it. Because it did. The journey from a forgotten player to MVP was not about raw talent. It was about outworking the doubts, overcoming rejection, and proving that dreams are built one brutal practice at a time. This is not just a story about football. This is the most unbelievable comeback in NFL history, and it all started when no one was watching. He didn't start as a star. In fact, most people never expected him to play a single snap in the NFL. Drafted in the late rounds, if drafted at all, he arrived at training camp with no fanfare and no interviews. His locker was tucked in the back corner of the facility, far from the veterans and rising stars. Coaches barely acknowledged him except to call out drills, and his name was rarely mentioned in team meetings. The practice squad became his reality. While the starters trained for game day, he ran practice plays against the defense, took hits from first-string players, and repeated routes that no one else wanted to run. His job was simple: make the starters better. He was the tackling dummy, the scout team filler, an extra body. The paychecks were small compared to those of the superstars. The recognition? Non-existent. Weeks passed without a single glimpse of the field on Sundays, and every cut day brought a new wave of anxiety. One wrong move, one missed block, and his NFL dream could be over. The hardest part wasn't the physical toll, it was the isolation. While teammates celebrated victories and lived in the spotlight, he quietly slipped out of the locker room, unnoticed by cameras or reporters. Fans had no idea who he was, and most assumed he would be gone by the next season. But he refused to let go of the dream. Instead of sulking, he worked harder. Every practice became a personal challenge. Faster routes, sharper footwork, cleaner catches. He spent hours watching game footage, studying the league's best players, and asking himself the same question over and over. What do they have that I don't? And deep down, he knew the answer: opportunity. What he lacked in natural talent or early recognition, he made up for with relentless dedication. While others rested, he trained. When others doubted him, he believed, because all it would take was one injury, one roster shift, or one lucky break. And when that moment came, he had to be ready. Little did he know that opportunity was closer than anyone imagined. Opportunity often comes without warning. Midway through the season, the team's starting wide receiver went down with a devastating injury. The coaches scrambled to adjust their game plan, searching for a replacement. Fans expected a high-profile signing or a trade from another team. No one thought the solution would come from the depths of the practice squad. Except the rookie was ready. When the coach called his name, it felt surreal. He had spent months preparing for this moment. Now, it was finally here. Suit up. The butterflies in his stomach threatened to take over as he lined up for his first official NFL snap. The lights were brighter than they had ever been, and the crowd's energy felt like electricity surging through his veins. He could feel the pressure of every eye in the stadium, every camera lens focused on him. The first play was simple, a short slant route. He ran it cleanly, caught the pass, and secured a first down. Nothing flashy, just solid execution. But that was all he needed. Confidence grew with every snap. A 5-yard catch turned into 10. A quick sideline grab turned into a sprint for 20 yards. With each successful play, something changed, not just in him but on the sidelines. Coaches leaned in. Teammates began to cheer him on. The crowd started chanting his name. By the end of the game, he had posted 6 receptions for 75 yards, a respectable stat line for someone who had been invisible just days earlier. But numbers didn't tell the full story. The team had found something more than just a temporary replacement. They had found a player who thrived under pressure, someone who could handle the intensity of the biggest stage. The media noticed, too. Headlines the next day read, "Practice squad star shines bright under stadium lights. Underdog delivers big in first NFL game." Still, doubters remained. Analysts called it a fluke performance and predicted he would fade back into obscurity. But he knew better. This wasn't luck. This was years of preparation finally paying off, and the next game would prove that this was just the beginning of something extraordinary. The first game had been his foot in the door. The next games would determine whether he belonged in the NFL, or if his rise was just a fleeting spark. The following week, the pressure intensified. Defenses were ready for him now. Opposing teams had reviewed the film, dissecting every move he had made in his breakout performance. Coaches designed coverage schemes specifically to shut him down. But he was ready. In practice, he doubled his efforts. He worked on his weaknesses, improving his route running, studying defenders' tendencies, and sharpening his ability to read coverage. The coaches started trusting him with more complex plays, testing his ability to adapt under pressure. The second game began, and from the first snap it was clear he was not just another rookie. Early in the second quarter, he caught a deep pass between 2 defenders, showcasing not just speed, but fearlessness. Later, with the team trailing, he ran a perfect route across the middle, absorbing a punishing hit, but securing a critical first down. His numbers began to soar. By halftime, he had over 100 receiving yards. By the end of the game, he had scored his first career touchdown. The headlines changed overnight. Underdog continues to defy expectations. From practice squad to rising star, a new NFL story begins. Teammates who once barely noticed him now rallied behind him. His name became a regular feature in post-game interviews. Reporters began to ask if this was the start of something historic. But for him, it wasn't about the fame. It was about proving that hard work could beat talent when talent failed to work hard. As the weeks passed, his stats kept climbing. Multiple 100-yard games, clutch catches, and game-winning plays. By mid-season, whispers of a dark horse MVP candidate started circulating among analysts. But the spotlight brought new challenges. Increased media pressure. Endless interviews and questions about his past struggles. The constant fear of falling short now that the world was finally watching. Still, he stayed grounded. His focus remained on the fundamentals: train harder, study longer, play smarter. And game by game, his rise to stardom felt less like a miracle, and more like destiny. The whispers were no longer whispers, they had become a roar. By the start of the final stretch of the season, the underdog from the practice squad was now being mentioned in the same breath as some of the league's biggest stars. Analysts debated whether his rise was the greatest Cinderella story the NFL had ever witnessed. But for him, there was still one mountain left to climb: the MVP title. Every game became a proving ground. The pressure was relentless. Defenders targeted him with everything they had: double coverage, hard hits, and constant attempts to shut him down. But no matter how tough the opposition, he found ways to break through. In Week 12, he delivered one of the most unforgettable performances of the season. 12 catches for 180 yards, 3 touchdowns, a game-winning grab in overtime that solidified his place as a force to be reckoned with. The media could no longer deny it. His name shot to the top of MVP discussions, and fans rallied behind him, seeing not just a player but a symbol of perseverance and relentless dedication. But with the spotlight came new challenges. A minor injury threatened to sideline him during a critical game. Critics argued he lacked the longevity of other MVP candidates. The pressure to perform every week weighed on him like never before. He played through the pain, unwilling to let the opportunity slip through his fingers. Each touchdown, each clutch play became another brick in a foundation built from years of being underestimated. The final game of the season was a defining moment. His team needed a win to secure a playoff berth, and he delivered 150 receiving yards and 2 touchdowns, including another game-winning score in the final minutes. When the regular season ended, the numbers spoke for themselves. 1,800 receiving yards, 20 touchdowns, countless game-winning plays. The MVP ceremony was the final chapter of his incredible journey. As his name was announced, the crowd erupted into thunderous applause. Tears welled in his eyes, not because of the trophy, but because of the journey it represented. The practice squad player who no one believed in had just been crowned the most valuable player in the NFL. The MVP trophy felt heavier than he had imagined, not because of its weight, but because of what it represented. Standing on that stage, surrounded by the biggest names in football, he reflected on the journey that had brought him here. Just a year ago, he had been buried deep on the practice squad, invisible to fans, ignored by coaches, and forgotten by the media. Now, he was being celebrated as the greatest player of the season. In his acceptance speech, his voice trembled with emotion. This trophy isn't just about touchdowns or records, it's about never giving up, even when the world has already counted you out. His story transcended football. Across the league, other practice squad players found new inspiration. Fans began to share their own struggles and dreams, seeing his journey as proof that hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. But his impact didn't stop at personal achievement. His rise became a symbol of hope for anyone who had ever been overlooked or underestimated. Coaches started using his story as motivation for rookies. Commentators called him the face of perseverance in the modern NFL. Off the field, he started giving back, mentoring young athletes, donating to programs that supported undrafted players, and speaking at schools about the importance of resilience. And as the next season approached, he made one thing clear: I'm not done yet. The journey doesn't stop at the top. It's about staying there and lifting others up along the way. His teammates respected him not just for his skill, but for his leadership and humility. Every practice became an opportunity for him to help younger players grow, sharing the lessons he had learned through every painful setback. His legacy was no longer just about stats or trophies. It was about rewriting what was possible for every underdog who dared to dream. The player who had once been forgotten on the practice squad had become something much greater, an unstoppable force and a legend in the making. If this unbelievable comeback inspired you, share this video with someone chasing their own dreams, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories of perseverance and triumph in the NFL.